Now, Angel, it's often been said that a person's story takes us on a journey of a lifetime. Your story, however, my friend, takes us on a journey of several lifetimes. Isn't that true?
Yes. You know, my great-great-grandfather and mother were the first Jehovah's Witnesses in my family. And here you can see them in 1940s in Ukraine.
Well, that is definitely a wonderful heritage to be a part of. Would you say, Angel, that the choices that members of your family made over the years had a direct bearing on your being here attending the 149th class of Gilead?
Definitely, yes. You know, they were serving Jehovah for many, many years. They had very hard but interesting life. Life full of many different stories. For example, when my great-grandfather was exiled to Siberia because being a Jehovah's Witness, and my great-grandmother would send him magazines hidden in the bottles of pork fat.
You said pork fat. Okay, now that sounds pretty interesting. Can you tell us more about this secret pork fat recipe of your great grandmother?
Okay, so my mom, she made some photos and sent it to me to explain how it was done. So as you can see here, first this fat was melted so that you could have a liquid fat. Then you need to wait so that this fat would become hard and thick. Then a magazine was wrapped in the linen and hole was made in the fat. And then this wrapped magazine was put in the hole and more fat was put on the top to hide this magazine. And now it's done. Now you have both physical and spiritual food in one bottle.
Well, there it is. Everything you need to survive in Siberia, right? Well, let me ask you, did the guards in Siberia ever find those magazines hidden in pork fat?
Sadly, but yes. And that's why they added additional 5.5 years for my great-grandfather's exile time in Siberia.
So the pork fat plan actually didn't work. Okay. Well, I think if nothing else, the pork fat or lard, which is what it is actually quite a good metaphor for how healthy spiritual food is when you think about it. I mean, what a fitting way to conceal the literature, even if, as we've seen, it actually didn't work. So I'm curious as to why this is even a worthwhile story to discuss. Yes, my great-grandfather had this way of concealing the literature involving lard, and it didn't work, so he only ended up getting another 5 years on his sentence. Okay, well, thank you, Angel, and it's worth introducing Angel properly. This is Angel Kuchuk from Ukraine. He is, of course, another of the Gilead graduates. He's, in fact, the last interview of this year's Inside Story. And we're learning all about his heritage in the organization, about how far back the organization goes. In fact, it was interesting where Richard asked,
Would you say, Angel, that the choices that members of your family made over the years had a direct bearing on your being here attending the 149th class of Gilead?
if you think about it, this could apply to any person with multiple generations of family members who have been committed to a religion. Just the very fact that you have multiple generations of your family invested in a religion and they're passing this religion on to you and you're learning from the choices that they've made doesn't make the religion true. It's interesting how they can point to this as being advantageous when it's their religion, but they would, of course, say to someone in another religion who says, oh, yes, but you don't understand. This religion goes way, way back in my family through all of these generations. A Jehovah's Witness would obviously say in that situation, well, never mind all that. We have the truth. You should leave behind, you should abandon all of that tradition and heritage just by virtue of the fact that multiple generations were in your religion doesn't make the religion true.
As you reflect upon the decisions that members of your family have made, How have their decisions affected you?
You know, they helped me to love Jehovah with all my heart and to put Him always first in my life.
Can you provide us an example of that?
Yes, for example, in Ukraine, all young men are required to do military service. But I, like many other brothers, choose not to do it. I chose civilian or alternative service instead. So I was still living at home, but government gives you any work they want, and you need to do it for 2 years.
If you don't mind my asking, what job did they give you?
So, okay, they sent me to clean sewer and water system. So I need to go inside these tanks, which were so filthy, and I need to clean them out. And for me, it was really very hard work. And sometimes I felt very sad about my situation.
Yeah, we're so sorry, Angel, that you had to go through that. But we certainly appreciate your loyalty to Jehovah at the same time.
So this ties in with what we were hearing about before from Sung Hee Lee, who was describing the fact that in South Korea, Jehovah's Witness conscientious objectors are now allowed to do 3 years of alternative service. It seems it's 2 years in the Ukraine, and now we're hearing what sort of work alternative service can involve. It can involve going into sewers for the sake of your faith. Now, I don't know enough about the situation in Ukraine to comment on whether that was the only option. At least in South Korea, I know that when you sign up for the military due to conscription, you do the 5 weeks of basic training, and you can have a non-combative role in the South Korea military. I don't know whether the same is true for Ukraine. In any case, it's regrettable that the country's government puts Jehovah's Witnesses in this situation, although I can understand why some countries would have unique security issues that require them to resort to conscription. And obviously, if you're going to have a conscription policy, you can't just allow anyone to opt out of it for any reason. And it's conceivable that people would use religion as an excuse, even if they're not particularly religious. On the other hand, Jehovah's Witnesses are also putting conscientious objectors like Angel in difficult situations by making this a matter of loyalty. If Angel doesn't go into the sewer, if he doesn't keep his Christian neutrality intact, there will be consequences. He could end up being disassociated and shunned by his believing family, and we've already learned that he has a large believing family, many generations in fact, who would all be required to shun him if he didn't fulfill the expectations of his religion and accept the alternative service and get in that sewer.
Can you tell us, though, what has been the highlight for you from your Gilead training?
Yes, Gilead had helped me to see more, to understand more, and to feel more. To see more this wonderful history of Jehovah's people, this wonderful heritage we all have. To understand more this wonderful deep Bible gems, Bible lessons for my life, and to feel more Jehovah's love and love of brothers and sisters, especially here. You know, my family, they had just few magazines, few books, and songbook. But it was enough for them to build strong faith in Jehovah. So in the new world, I want to see all of my big family. And I want to share with them these wonderful gems I learned here on Gilead while they were sleeping. And I want to say them thank you for setting such a good example of faith for me.
Well, Angel, you have certainly touched our hearts by means of that beautiful story. Thank you for sharing your family legacy with all of us. We really appreciated that.
Thank you.
I can actually relate to Angel because, as I mentioned in part one of this series, I've been through ministerial training school, which is kind of, or was kind of, a condensed version of Gilead. So whereas Gilead takes place over 5 months, MTS, or the School for Kingdom Evangelizers, takes place over a much shorter period. My course was only 2 months. But I was one of those students who, during the graduation ceremony, was invited up on the platform to talk about my background in just the same way as Angel is doing now. And I too mentioned the resurrection. I too mentioned the fact that I had lost loved ones in death. In fact, at the time of my MTS, I was still in the early stages of recovering from losing my mother, who died only 4 years previous. So I was obviously talking about how wonderful MTS was and how I was making my mother proud by attending. And it's all very emotional, isn't it? But that, again, doesn't make it true. And isn't it sad that this is an organization that hijacks the grieving process and leverages people's memories of loved ones as a tool to keep them loyal, as a tool to keep them compliant? In all honesty, when I really look back with total candor at my MTS experience, there really wasn't anything special about it. We were just studying the literature that, for the most part, any Jehovah's Witness can read. Everything we were studying at MTS is basically already available in the publications or on Watchtower Online Library. Once or twice they would use the Elder's Manual. I obviously didn't have a copy because I was a ministerial servant at the time, but I was sat next to an elder in our classroom, and he would open his book and I would obviously sneak a glance at what it said. Yeah, there wasn't really any secret information that was made available to us. It was all stuff that's already in the literature. The MTS course, and I'm guessing the same is true of Gilead, it was just a condensed indoctrination session. It was just an opportunity for students to completely immerse themselves in study of the organization's publications over a period of months. That's all it is. And when you're being interviewed afterwards, if you're being interviewed afterwards, or even if it's just someone asking you about it when you get back to your congregation, you're just not going to say, yeah, it was okay, wasn't that special. To be honest, we just studied the publications that anyone can study. You're not going to say that, are you? You're obviously going to wax lyrical. You're obviously going to big it up and pretend that it's something deeply profound, when in fact all it is a concentrated indoctrination program.
As we've learned from the experiences shared by our 4 guests today, the choices that we make do matter. They matter to ourselves, to our family members, to our worldwide brotherhood, and especially to our loving God, Jehovah. We hope that you have been both encouraged and motivated by the experiences you've heard today. Until we meet again on a future edition of the Inside Story, please enjoy this brief little snapshot of Class 149.
We were not disappointed. Thank you, Brother Chilton, along with the students who assisted you.
Yeah, Sam Hurd seems really excited there about what we've just watched. Speak for yourself, Samuel Hurd. I wouldn't say I was disappointed. I was certainly underwhelmed. I think, considering the fact that there were 25 students on the 149th Gilead class, And we saw them there all waving in the snow, didn't we? Gosh. You would think, I don't know, maybe it's just me, you would think that out of those 25 students, we would have more compelling stories than that. All we've heard is a story about a guy who was a conscientious objector in South Korea, whose experience with jail only served to strengthen his indoctrination and strengthen his belief that there was something special about his religion. We heard from a couple, a circuit overseer and his wife in Senegal, who skipped their honeymoon or cut short their honeymoon in order to do what was expected of them. And we've heard from another conscientious objector in Ukraine who has a long heritage. Many generations of his family are Jehovah's Witnesses. That's it. Those are the most compelling stories out of the 25 students who attended the 149th class of Gilead.